Daisy, and last night was a whirlwind I didn't see coming. It was supposed to be a simple welcome party for Justin, my boyfriend Zach's new roommate, at their apartment near the university. I'd heard bits about Justin. Zach mentioned a guy who'd just been through a rough breakup. Someone looking to restart his life. I didn't expect to walk into a night that would leave me questioning everything. My heart racing with a strange mix of curiosity and danger. Zach, true to form, was nowhere to be found, leaving me to navigate this crowded, chaotic scene alone. The apartment was already buzzing when I arrived. A mix of students and strangers, laughter and music drowning out the quiet doubts in my mind. Justin was easy to spot. He stood in the corner with his friend Phil, holding a beer like it was his lifeline. He wasn't what I expected. Average build, dark hair, a face that wasn't striking but carried a kind of raw honesty. His eyes, though, held something heavy, like he was still carrying his ex's betrayal. I marched over, determined to break the ice. "So, who's Justin?" I asked, my voice cutting through the noise. He raised a hand, a shy smile flickering. "Guilty," he said, and I couldn't help but grin. There was something disarming about him, like he was trying to figure out how to exist in this moment. We shook hands, and I teased him about Zach maybe mentioning a Gemma instead of me. His comeback was quick, calling me a crazy stalker with a grin that dared me to keep up. I fired back, mocking his attempt at humor, but there was a spark in his eyes, a challenge. It was like we were fencing, each word a jab, testing boundaries. I told him I'd brought friends from uni, some single, and if he played his cards right, he might get lucky. His face flushed, and Phil just nodded like he was used to Justin's awkward charm. I left them to mingle, promising to find Zach, but my mind lingered on Justin's nervous energy. Something about him felt unpredictable. The party grew louder, a blur of drinks and weed and conversations I barely followed. Zach still hadn't shown, his texts vague and infuriating. I was used to his disappearing acts, but tonight it stung more than usual. Maybe it was the vibe of the party, or maybe it was the way Justin kept catching my eye from across the room, like he was trying to solve a puzzle. I pushed the thought away. Zach was my boyfriend, even if he was a flake. But as midnight ticked by, I found myself gravitating back to Justin, drawn by some unspoken pull. I spotted him on a couch chatting with a couple of girls. Without thinking, I strode over and plopped onto his lap, my legs dangling across the couch. It was bold, maybe too bold, but I was tipsy and restless. "Zach's dropped off the face of the earth again," I announced, my voice louder than intended. Justin's eyes widened, his body tensing beneath me. I could feel his heartbeat, quick and unsteady, and it sent a thrill through me. I was playing with fire, and I knew it. "Tell me about you," I said, leaning closer, my words a dare. "I hear you have a bitch ex-girlfriend." His eyes darted around, checking for eavesdroppers. Zoe's friend Debbie was nearby, and he whispered for me to keep it down. I giggled, then shouted, "What a bitch!" just to mess with him. His face was a mix of panic and amusement, and I loved it. I was pushing buttons, seeing how far I could go before he pushed back. He told me about Zoe, his voice tight with hurt, but then shifted to himself. His job, his hopes, his awkward dreams of a wilder life. I listened, really listened. My eyes locked on his, studying every flicker of emotion. There was something raw about him, something that made my chest tighten. The night blurred on, and I stayed on his lap. Our banter a tightrope walk between playful and dangerous. Every laugh, every glance felt like it carried weight. I could sense him trying to keep his cool, but his eyes betrayed him. There was want there, and fear, and maybe something deeper. I wasn't blind to the tension, but I told myself it was just fun, just teasing. Zach was the one I loved, even if he was letting me down. Still, with every passing minute, Justin felt less like a stranger and more like someone who could upend everything. Around 2 a.m., I realized I was drunker than I thought. The room spun slightly, and Justin's voice was a steady anchor. "You okay?" he asked, his hand brushing my arm. I nodded, but my head was a mess. Zach's absence, Justin's closeness, the way my heart raced when he looked at me. I leaned closer, my lips inches from his ear. "You're not what I expected," I whispered, my voice low. His breath hitched, and for a moment, I thought I might cross a line I couldn't uncross. But I pulled back, laughing it off, leaving him hanging in that charged silence. The party thinned out, but I didn't move from Justin's side. We talked about everything and nothing, music, movies, the way he thought Stereophonic's first album was underrated. I teased him about his age, calling him an old man at 24, and he shot back that I was a kid who didn't get it. It was easy, too easy, to fall into this rhythm with him. But every so often, I'd catch a glimpse of Debbie watching us, and I'd wonder what she'd report back to Zoe. Part of me wanted her to tell Zoe everything, to stir up trouble. Another part was terrified of what that trouble might mean. By 4 a.m., I was fading, my head resting against Justin's chest. His arm was around me, tentative but warm, and I let myself sink into it. I was crossing lines, but I was too tired to care. The last thing I remember was his heartbeat, steady and loud, lulling me to sleep. When I woke, I was in a huge bed, alone. The room unfamiliar. Panic hit first. Where was I? Then I saw Justin on the floor, curled up on a makeshift bed of blankets. My heart twisted. He'd carried me here, to his room, and chosen the floor over sharing the bed. It was sweet, infuriatingly so. I shook him awake, my voice sharper than I meant. "What are you doing, you idiot?" He blinked up at me, groggy and confused. "Sleeping," he mumbled, rubbing his neck. I rolled my eyes, masking the warmth spreading through me. "There's a king-size bed, and you're on the floor? Get up here before I kick your ass." He hesitated, muttering about Zack, but I waved it off. "Lock the door! He won't show." Reluctantly, he climbed in, sticking to the far side like he was afraid to breathe. I wasn't having it. I slid closer, pressing against him, my head on his shoulder. His body went rigid, and I could practically hear his thoughts spiraling. "What are you thinking?" I whispered, my voice soft but laced with intent. He stammered. Something about me being Zack's girlfriend. About how wrong this felt. I cut him off. "I don't cheat, Justin." But then I admitted Zack's flaws. His disappearances, my suspicions, the way he made me feel like an afterthought. I was bearing too much, but I couldn't stop. "I'm glad I met you," I said, squeezing his hand. "Now sleep, or I'll cut you." He laughed, calling me fucked up, and I took it as a compliment. We fell asleep like that, tangled in a way that felt both safe and reckless. When I woke, the bed was empty, and for a moment, I thought I'd dreamed it all. But the ache in my chest was real, and so was the quiet apartment. I got up, threw on one of Justin's shirts over my dress, and started cleaning. The place was a wreck, but I needed to move, to think. I kicked out the stragglers, ignoring their protests, and started cooking breakfast. The act grounded me, but my mind was still on Justin. He stumbled out, looking like hell, his voice rough. "Morning," he croaked. I grinned, calling him lover, just to see him squirm. He didn't disappoint, his face turning red. I teased him about being a veggie, and he gave it right back, calling out my potty mouth. We bantered over breakfast, an English fry-up I'd made to honor my dad's side of the family. It was the best I'd ever cooked. And Justin's slow, appreciative bites made me stupidly proud. For a moment, it felt like we were something else. Something more. Then my phone buzzed. Zack. Alive. Apologetic, wanting to take me to lunch. My stomach dropped. I didn't want to leave, but I had to. I stood stretching and told Justin I'd be back. In his bathroom, I changed into a tight red dress, then walked out and stood in front of him, blocking the TV. "This one or the blue one?" I asked, my voice casual, but my eyes locked on his. He swallowed hard, saying the red looked great. I wasn't satisfied. I slipped out of it, standing there in my bra and panties, pretending it was nothing. "What do you think?" I asked, spinning slowly. His jaw tightened, but he kept it together, muttering something about preferring French knickers. I laughed, calling him an anomaly, and tried on the blue dress. We went back and forth, me pushing, him deflecting, until I mentioned stockings just to see him blush. "Pervert," I teased, but my heart was racing. This wasn't just flirting, it was a game, and I was losing track of the rules. I grabbed his number, gave him a quick kiss on the cheek, and left. The door clicking shut behind me. Outside, the air felt colder, sharper. I walked to meet Zack, but my mind was back in that apartment. With Justin's nervous smiles and the way he'd looked at me like I was both a dream and a nightmare. I told him I didn't cheat, and I meant it. But Zack's absence, his lies, were eroding something in me. Justin was a complication I hadn't planned for. A spark in a room full of gasoline. My phone buzzed in my pocket, and I pulled it out, typing a quick message to Justin. "Missing me already? Fucktard?" I hit send, my pulse racing, knowing I was stepping closer to a line I might not come back from. Zack was waiting, but Justin was lingering, and I wasn't sure who I was running toward, or what I was running from. All I knew was that last night had changed something, and the suspense of what came next was unbearable.